um, with the last words of Harvey Milk as a way to gather us.
This is to be played only in the event of my death by assassination. I fully realize that a person who stands for what I stand for, an activist, gay activist, becomes the target or the potential target for somebody who is insecure, terrified, afraid, or very disturbed themselves. And knowing that I could be assassinated at any moment or any time, I feel it's important that some people know my thoughts. I stood for more than just a candidate. I have never considered myself a candidate. I have always considered myself part of a movement, part of a candidacy. I wish I had time to explain everything I did. Almost everything was done in the eyes of the gay movement.
I would ask our collaborator, Stephen Torres of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District to start us off.
Thank you, Jeffrey. My name is Stephen Torres. I am the executive chair of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District.
This is being played only.
Tonight we acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush for the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. On behalf of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District Advisory Board and District staff, I want to welcome you all on this anniversary of the Milk Moscone assassination and the vigil that we hold annually, that is held every year by the Harvey Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club. I think that this resonates with everyone here today deeply because of the events that transpired at Club Q this past week. I think that for myself and all the residents of the Castro, that I think especially for those of us that work in the nightlife industry, that those events, just as Pulse did, you walk into your shift every night thinking that that could happen. And I think that it's easy for us to get scared, and it's easy for us to get scared back into the closet. But this isn't new. If you go all the way back to the Upstairs Lounge fire in New Orleans, there's a long history of terrorism against the LGBTQ community. And there are those, even in the elected office of this nation, who talk about our community grooming their children, where it could be argued that they're grooming so many to be terrorists, grooming so many to take up arms against our community. Yeah. And the only way you fight against that is, as we are doing today, by gathering, by being visible, by not being scared, by going to queer spaces and continuing to go to those queer spaces. So I ask, on behalf of my colleagues on the board, on behalf of the staff of the Cultural District, as an entertainment commissioner, to please, this evening, after this memorial, go to a queer space tonight and be visible and be yourself and love each other. Thank you.
Thank you. We gather this evening also to mourn the victims of Club Q. Chase Rangio, who we honored at Gala this year, but was busy fighting for ACLU against anti-trans legislation throughout the South, shared this with us. We go to queer bars to find our people and to find ourselves. That is why there is something uniquely devastating about queer sanctuary spaces being targeted for violence. We go to the bar, to the club, to the queer brunch, to revel in our queerness, our joy, and our love for each other, when society makes it unrelentingly clear that we are despised. If you can't wrap your head around a bar or club as a sanctuary, you've never probably been afraid to hold someone's hand in public. On sweaty dance floors in strip malls, in crowded bars hidden on back roads, in homemade sanctuaries built of generations of care, we celebrate our beauty. In bathroom selfies, in surgeons' offices, in dirty mirrors, we finally see ourselves. Our embodiment is resistance to society's expectation of conformity, of binary, of sanitized intimacy in the service of capital. We build connections to ourselves and others that threaten the certainty that norms seek to impose. Tonight we also remember two of our shining pioneer leaders, Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey. 44 years since their assassination. And we are so honored to have Supervisor Silvers, who was there, who knew both Harvey and Mayor Moscone. Please come up and share a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to address this relatively very small crowd. I remember the day when the vigil, this vigil, would have filled the entirety of Castro Street and on down Market. However, 44 years is a long time. And in 44 years, we have, I thought, until last week, made enormous progress on behalf of the gay community in our country. But it is a sad, tragic day to have to come in San Francisco, not only to mourn assassinations 44 years ago, but to feel sorry, to mourn a tragic set of killings in Colorado. I think what is most important for us is to know that everything changes but also stays the same. There were attacks on the gay community, just as there were attacks on other communities in America, and as we also have to remember the kind of attacks that came before the actual Holocaust in Europe. There were attacks on Jewish people through pogroms and other similar kinds of things. Everyone who is considered to be on the margins of society, to be not part of not part of, quote, us, unquote, not me, but those people, we have to look every time that something like that happens. We have to remember the one time that this group is remembering. We have to always remember what has happened in the past, so that hopefully we can look forward to a future where it will not happen again. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. The following are excerpts that speak to the life of Kelly Loving. Kelly Loving wasn't a club person, to say the least, her close friend Natalie Skye said. But she had just celebrated her 40th birthday and decided to head from her home north of Denver to Club Q in Colorado Springs. It blew my mind, in a good way, seeing her going out of her comfort zone, going out and celebrating, Natalie said. When I say this woman hated going out, she hated going out. Loving showed Natalie her outfit and promised to call back after she grabbed a drink and settled in. She never called back. Tiffany Loving, Kelly Loving's sister, wrote, "My sister was a good person. She was loving and caring and sweet. Everyone loved her. Kelly was a wonderful person." On Facebook, Tiffany wrote that she felt like a mother to her sister Kelly, and that she will miss late-night phone calls that the two shared. On Facebook, Loving was known to friends as Jenna Snow. One friend posted that she and Loving had a recent conversation about their deaths, and Loving asked her friend if she would attend her funeral. That friend, LaShanta J. Cole, had said she would, and they joked about where it would be. The two did not know it would all become a reality just a few days later, Cole wrote. Natalie, now 25, said she had known Loving since she was 18 and transitioning into life as a woman. They met at Club Extra in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a trans club that advertises music, drinks, and a safe, inclusive atmosphere. She was like a trans mother to me, Natalie said. She came into my life at a special moment where I was so down and didn't believe in myself. Loving, who was from Memphis, was compassionate, generous, and trusting, Natalie said. When I didn't even know how to put on makeup or how to dress, and I didn't feel the confidence in myself, Kelly was the one to embrace me, Natalie said. She told me to embrace who I was, not to worry about what other people think or say. She said, being different is okay. Being who I am is okay. Loving was able to help Natalie with her transition. That's because she had been through it all before. Loving had been shot and stabbed before by people who didn't accept her for who she was, Natalie said. Despite it all, she persisted and continued to see the best in people. She had the most confidence of anybody I had ever met before, Natalie said. She didn't care about what anybody thought about her or who she was because she knew she was genuine in her heart, and that's what mattered. Rest in peace and power, Kelly Loving.
Thank you, Akela. Akela is a board member of the Harvey Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club. And I want to introduce our board president, Edward Wright.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight in remembrance, in community, in resilience, in solidarity, and grief. We have gathered these past 44 years so often to grieve. But I think by doing it together, that's the only way we can move forward and get through it. It wasn't just bullets that killed George Moscone and Harvey Milk. It was an act of political violence. It was an act of homophobia, of transphobia, of white grievance. And those same forces that wreaked so much damage 44 years ago are still in force today. We are still contending with those forces today. And what Harvey understood so well 44 years ago is that the only way we can move forward is together. It's only by building alliances, by standing in solidarity, by building coalitions, that we can get through it and get to a better place. And I can't say for certain that we're in a better place. I think as we see those forces, they've taken many forms. The rise in gun violence, the attack at Club Q. I mean, Dan White had to sneak through a window to get into City Hall, and the insurrectionists on January 6th walked through the front door of the Capitol at the invitation of the president. Just as much as we have taken steps forward, there is so much further that we have to go. And I can't say with any certainty what things are going to look like 44 years from now, but I can say with certainty that the only way it's going to get better is if we stay together, if we fight for each other. We have to be better at loving each other than they are at hating us. We have to be better at building each other up than they are at trying to tear us down. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for taking up space. We have to keep taking space and making space and moving forward. And the only way we're going to get this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Edward Wright. We have the privilege of having our former club president, Glenn Craig, who also personally knew Harvey, to share powerful words. I always am in awe and inspired listening to Glenn Craig. Glenn Craig.
I want to say that I'm experiencing quite a bit of deja vu. In 1978, the last time I saw Harvey alive, just a couple of weeks before the assassination, we had just finished up the No on 6 campaign. The campaign that said that lesbians and gay men should not be allowed to teach in the California public schools. And that campaign was predicated on the idea, the same idea, that had been used in the campaign in Miami, Florida, and in other cities across the United States. An insidious idea that gay people were naturally inclined towards pedophilia, naturally inclined to be pedophiles, to harm your children. The catchphrase they used was, since they cannot reproduce, they must recruit. When I would tell people about this catchphrase some years later when I would do presentations about what happened during the No 6 campaign, they would usually get a laugh. They thought it was ridiculous. They thought it was silly. But here we are now in 2022, and the same ridiculous idea is being promoted, is being used to promote hate, to promote violence, to promote ideas that we are to be dehumanized in a way that brings violence. The kind of violence that was inflicted upon the people in Colorado Springs at the Club Q. The kind of violence that was inflicted upon the people in Orlando, Florida at the Pulse nightclub. The same kind of violence that may happen over again if we do not seriously address what's needed. What's different than in 1978, what they had are a lot of weapons they didn't have then. They have social media, and they have weak, crippled minds that have been set up by conspiracy ideas already in place that have been pounded and pounded away with messages of hate and the idea that if people are different from you, they shouldn't be trusted, they should be hated, and they should be harmed. What we have is something different. What Harvey told us back in the 70s was that we could confront the hate and ignorance by coming out. Come out was his strong message. Let everyone know, your family, your friends, your co-workers, your neighbors, everyone, who you are. Let them know about your authentic lives. In 2022, we've mostly come out. We mostly, predominantly, live our lives out in the open. Predominantly, we are supported by our families and by our co-workers and our neighbors and the people that we have around us. But we need more. We need to take those allies that we have built, those allies that we have come to depend upon and that we know support us and love us, and build that and build more. With allies like Richard Fierro, who had brought his family to Club Q that night.
Yeah, that's right.
Loved being with us and loved us enough to together with a trans woman at that bar that night, stopped the shooter and brought more safety to those who might have been killed, in addition to the 5 who perished. If we can build on that support, if we can build on our alliances, and if we can continue to build on the love and support we give one another, then we may prevail, and we may show that love is indeed stronger than hate. And we may indeed show people that we are not the monsters they make us out to be. That those arguments, those lines they make up are just as silly as we know them to be. There's things that we can do to bring about safety and support for one another. One other note I want to make about this. One thing that Harvey also talked about, that he built, that he tried so hard to build, was a community that was diverse and plural. He, in the No on 6 campaign, certainly, and every organization that he had a chance to build, in every way that he organized, he insisted on gender parity in particular, and as much plurality as possible. I think we need to try and copy those principles as much as possible in our community. We've slipped away from that in many ways. And I think that we need to try and show again that we are indeed everywhere. We are indeed every fragment of society. And we need to accept every member of our community in every way possible. We can build stronger if we accept the strength of every one of our members. And I think we need to pay serious attention to that.
Yeah.
Lastly, I hope that we will also build alliances with other communities that are also under attack. They need us. We need them. Let's build strength together.
That's right.
Let's be allies as we need allies. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the Milk Club giving me this opportunity to speak again tonight. Harvey is just as dear and near in my heart as he was 40 years ago. I still mourn his passing, and I still take heart and draw strength from seeing all of you come out each and every November. Thank you very much.
Ashley Poe was one of the 5 people killed in last Saturday's shooting at Club Q. Ashley Poe's family released a statement on her behalf on Monday saying that they were absolutely devastated. She meant everything to this family, and we can't even begin to understand what it will mean to not have her in our lives. Ashley was a mother, and her daughter Riley was her whole world. She loved her dad, her sister, and her family. Ashley was a loving aunt, with many nieces and nephews who were devastated by her loss. Ashley had a huge heart, which she was able to show through her work at Kids Crossing, a nonprofit that helps foster children find homes. You do anything for the kids, traveling all over southeastern Colorado, from Pueblo to Colorado Springs to Fremont County and the Colorado border, working to raise awareness and encourage individuals and families to become foster parents to children in our community. She also worked
for the LGBTQ community to find welcoming foster homes. A lover of the outdoors, fishing and riding four-wheelers, Ashley was 35 years old.
Thank you. Next, I wanted to invite someone that cut high school, apparently, in order to campaign for Mayor George Moscone in the 1975 runoff. I've been doing some research. We have another club president, former club president of the Harvey Milk Club, Angie Fong.
Thank you so much. I'm here tonight to say that no good organizing is ever lost. The coalition that Harvey and George built with our community, labor, and the progressive community lives on in San Francisco today. No good organizing is ever lost. As Jeffrey said, as a high school student, I got into trouble for cutting class to get out the vote on the day we elected George. This was part of the LGBTQ plus progressive labor coalition I was working through the United Farm Workers Union. No good organizing is ever lost. Harvey was special in his support for labor. Harvey went out of his way to take Cesar Chavez's brother Richard into the gay bars to build support for the Farm Workers Union. No good organizing is ever lost. Harvey and Alan Baird worked together to build community support for the Coors beer boycott. Boycott Coors because they are still non-union. Boycott Coors because of their history of discrimination against people of color. Boycott Coors because of their bankrolling of conservative causes that harm us. No good organizing is ever lost. The coalitions that Harvey and George built have continued across the many decades through the pain of the AIDS crisis, the hard fights for domestic partners and gay marriage. No good organizing is ever lost. The Milk Club and this yearly remembrance and the coalitions that we continue to build today are here for Club Q victims, and whenever homophobia and racism and union busting rear their ugly heads. No good organizing is ever lost. Honor Harvey, boycott Coors. Let's just do a quick chant in his memory. Boycott Coors.
Boycott Coors. Boycott Coors.
Honor Harvey, boycott Coors. Thank you.
Raymond Green Vance was visiting Club Q for the first time with his longtime girlfriend, her parents and some of her parents' friends. They were celebrating a birthday, and among the people Raymond was partying with was included Richard M. Fierro, the Army veteran who along with trans women stomped their heels to subdue the suspected gunman.
That's right.
Unfortunately, he never left the club. Raymond was a victim of a man who unleashed terror on innocent people out with family and friends. His own family and friends are completely devastated by the sudden loss of a son, grandson, brother, nephew, and cousin loved by many. Vance had just gotten a new job at Colorado Springs FedEx Distribution Center and was thrilled to have received his first paycheck just in time for Christmas. He couldn't wait to save enough money to get his own apartment, but in the meantime, he lived with his mother and younger brother who adored him. His family shared. Raymond was a kind, selfless young adult with his entire life ahead of him. His closest friends describe him as a gifted one of a kind and willing to go out of his way to help anyone. He spent most of his spare time with his girlfriend, who he had been with since middle school. He also played video games and hoped to turn into an online career one day. Raymond Green Vance, the youngest of the five, was 22.
Also Ernesto, member of the board of the Harvey Milk Club. I'm going to invite Bevan Duffy, Park Director, to come and say a few words.
I feel so privileged that we have these amazing women that are here tonight to have heard. I just gotta say, Carol Ruth Silver, just amazing, who represented South of Market, and Gwen Craig being here, and Angie Fa, who served on the school board and was such a trailblazer. And so I want to say that I'm the dad of a 16-year-old, and young people give me hope for the future. I think that young people, queer, not allies, non-binary, I think that that is the future. And I think that is why there's such a sense of desperation on the part of these awful Republicans. And I thought a lot about Harvey and Sally Gerhardt debating John Briggs, who was the state senator and so homophobic, who put Prop 6 on the ballot, and they dissected him. You just see them take away all of his argumentation and render what a fool he is. And I want to take a moment and I want to thank Scott Wayner. You've seen in the past few days that he has been in the public square standing up to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who makes Sarah Palin look like a Nobel laureate compared to what an idiot this person is. But idiots can be dangerous. And I just want to say that we have someone in our ranks, in our elected ranks. And Scott, you know, our endorsement sheets don't look the same all the time. But I love what he's accomplishing for us, how he stood up for trans kids. He's a generation of gay men ahead of me who were sex registrants for no reason at all. And Scott lifted that away. He's carried half the bills out of Equality California and been incredibly successful. And so I just want to say that I am very proud to be part of the elected family. I'm looking to elect some new folks, and so I want Angie to meet Janice Lee, who's an amazing queer young Asian American woman who works in her career for Stop Asian Hate, and she's going to be the next BART board president at the age of 34, the youngest, and so we have to be ready for our younger generation, and we have to be paving the way. But I do want to just again come back on the fact that Scott has taken a lot of arrows in this, and I think that we want to support him in this fight, because I believe that someday he will be going higher and will be standing right there, toe-to-toe, fighting against these folks. I love you all. I'm so proud to be part of this community. Thank you.
This week, in the aftermath of the Club Q shootings, we've seen an onslaught of online falsehoods about our state senator, Scott Wiener, to spread these false narratives of grooming, accusing gay men of grooming children, to have gay men associated with arguably the worst crime that we can imagine, not only implicitly, but explicitly condones the type of violence that we are seeing in our community, targeting our queer bars, targeting our queer community. We condemn the hate, we condemn the words of violence against Senator Scott Wiener, and we want to recognize Senator Scott Wiener. Please come up.
Thank you. First of all, let's hear it again for all of these amazing leaders behind me here. You know, when I was a child, see, I even have fans everywhere. So when I was a kid, my father. So when I was a child, you know, I'm Jewish, and I remember my father saying to me, talking about the Holocaust and what happened to the 6 million Jews who were massacred in Europe. And I remember him saying to me, always remember that those people are still here, the people who did that. That it wasn't just a one-time thing, that the people who killed the Jews, those people are still around, generation after generation, and that hatred towards my other community never goes away. And when I think about the murder of Harvey Milk and of George Moscone and where that came from hatred towards a more progressive direction for the city and towards queer people, that's what that was about. That has never gone away. That is still with us. Harvey Milk was killed because they wanted us to disappear. They wanted us to go away, to be erased. And you fast forward to today, and it's happening again. When you look at what's happening with trans kids and the laws that are being passed, they want those trans kids to go away, and they're not. When you look at the black and brown trans women who are being murdered at outrageous rates in this country, it's because they want them to go away, and they're not. And when they're attacking drag queen story hour, drag brunches, imagine that, attacking drag queens. It's because they want them to go away, and the drag queens aren't going anywhere.
Right.
And when they attack gay men as being pedophiles, groomers, whatever, we're not going away either. But you know what I have to say, and I appreciate the kind words from Jeffrey and Bevan. I'm a fortunate one. I represent 1 million people. I have staff that can help me. I have some access to resources. But for every person like me who's getting attacked by a Marjorie Taylor Greene or some idiot online, for every person like me who's getting death threats, there are 1,000 people who no one knows their name, and they have no access to any resources, and they are being bullied and harassed and intimidated and threatened, and they are suffering in silence. So when we fight, we are fighting for the people that we have never heard of before to make their lives better. So Harvey and Milk as they smile, Harvey and George as they smile down on us, they know that we're continuing the fight. I am so grateful to the Milk Club and everyone who keeps this flame going every single year. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Scott. The following honors Derek Ronk, a Club Q victim. Derek was a bartender at Club Q who had, quote, found a community of people that he loved very much, and he felt that he could shine there, and he did. He made a difference in so many people's lives, and that's where he wanted to be, his sister Julia shared. Kiara, who performed at the club the night before the incident, said Derek and his co-worker Daniel Aston were polar opposites in many ways, but worked well together. They were just amazing, and every bar should have a Daniel and a Derek. For those who just moved into Colorado Springs and were unsure what the LGBTQ scene might look like, it was people like Derek and Daniel who made Club Q feel like home, she said. Jesse Hazelwood, who met Derek and Daniel shortly after moving to Colorado Springs, said, quote, if you walked into the club and heard Britney Spears playing, you knew Derek was working the bar. Derek and Daniel were the light and the heart of Club Q. We don't say the LGBTQ community. We say the Club Q community because that's what it is here in Colorado Springs. It's a place that gave us a safe space to be who we are all the time, and Derek and Daniel especially were always the glue, the heart that kept everything together. It wasn't just LGBTQ patrons they welcomed either. Quote, if anybody was having a hard time, if anybody was new to the community, they always had open arms for everybody, even people who weren't part of the LGBTQ community could go there and celebrate their friendships, their allyships, because Derek and Daniel made everybody feel safe. They made everybody feel like they could be exactly who they are all the time. I don't think that our community could ever replicate the sense of Club Q that it was with Derek and Daniel. I don't think we'll ever be the same. Thank you.
That was Reed Coggins, Vice President of Political Affairs at the Democratic Club. Next up, it's my honor to introduce someone who is a tireless worker against the gentrification that we're experiencing here in the city, as well as an educator and nurturing and teaching future generations to love themselves for who they are, whether it be at the Children's After School Arts Program at Rooftop Elementary here in San Francisco, or as the very first drag queen to read to the children, not the children, in Drag Queen Story Hour. And I also am honored to call her my very good friend, my hermana, and my roommate, Persia.
Hi everyone. Can you just take a deep breath, please? And exhale, mindfully, okay? COVID's still around. My name is Persia. Me llamo Persia or Persia. Either one works. Trust me, I've been called way worse. Yeah, that's right. What I do? I'm a drag performer. I am an educator in after-school arts programs for first grade. Who I am? I am Mexican. I know, I fooled you with the blonde hair. I'm Mexican. I'm trans. Non-binary. And it's not easy. I'm really honored to be here speaking. I wrote something, but you know, I'm just gonna go from the heart as I normally do. It's been really hard for all of us, right? I had to take a few days off. I was in bed because I was talking to my mother, and I was like, I work at a school, and we know what happens at school sometimes, right? I don't want to say it. And then this happens. And I'm like, I can't feel safe anywhere. I am a visibly trans brown person. I don't know if they're looking at me because they're saying, look at that person who is blah, 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 blah. Or if they're saying, wow, she's so beautiful. I don't know. But most likely is the other one, right? And it's been really hard because I always say when I do Drag Story Hour, I always say that I am the luckiest drag queen in the whole entire world. Not because I have money, because I don't, because I'm hella broke. Because I have a million jobs and I'm still broke. But because I get to do everything I love, which is work in a classroom with students, and then at night, I get to work with the big children at the club. Sometimes the big children are the worst, seriously. But those are the things that I love to do. And if you're ever in my classroom, you would see the love and care. Yes, I'm a little tough because that's the drag queen in me, you know? But, you know, those are the things I love. And despite all the challenges and all the hate, the online hate, and like it was said before by someone, you know, there's people who get hate, right? But then they have like the resources to be like, hey, I'm protected. Guess what? Not me. I don't have that. So when I get attacked online, I'm like, well, let's hope they don't know where I live, because then who knows, right? So, like I was telling my mom, and I was crying, and I was like, es que no puedo, it's just, And then, so I cried a lot, and my mom was like, okay, get it all out. But guess what? You still gotta work and
keep doing what you're doing, because clearly the reason why these things are happening is that we are now becoming visible. And people who are comfortable in their own skin radiate. And those people who are not comfortable in their own skin are scared, right? And so, this is what I tell my children, well, not my children, but my students, be yourself. Seriously, that's the best thing. And sometimes, I don't even know what that means, but do what makes you feel good, what makes you feel your true authentic self, whatever that is for you, and then just push forward, right? With all the love and care, because there's so much hate out there, but like my mom said, okay, chiga, yeah. Oh, well, I was gonna say a bad word. Oh, because my mom, you know, she only speaks Spanish, so, you know, anyway. So she said, okay, wipe those tears, you got all that energy out, it's okay to cry it out, but now it's time to work. So I say to all of you, y'all better work, because there's a lot of work to be done. Yes, and remember, love each other, but also hold each other accountable when things are not going right, when you can't pay rent, and you have 5 jobs, all those things. So let's not only love each other, but also hold each other accountable. Hold me accountable too, because sometimes I talk too much. But anyway, loves you, mil besos, gracias, thank you so much for having me.
Daniel Aston was 28 years old, and he was the bar supervisor at Club Q. The night of the shooting, Daniel's coworker, Michael, saw the gunman and ducked behind the bar as glass rained down on him. Thinking death was near, Michael said a prayer and moved to escape the scene. He encountered strangers, good Samaritans, that were beating and kicking the gunman. Michael looked back, crushed upon realizing that Daniel hadn't made it out of the bar, which had been considered a safe space for the LGBT community in Colorado Springs until that night. Michael shared, Daniel was the best supervisor anyone could have asked for. He made me want to come into work. He made me want to be a part of the positive culture we are trying to create there. He added that Daniel was an amazing person. He was a light in my life, he said. And it's surreal that we're even talking about him in the past tense like this. Daniel moved to Colorado Springs 2 years ago to be closer to his parents. Their names are Jeff and Sabrina. And Club Q is only a few minutes away from their home. So after one of Daniel's friends told them that he'd been shot, they immediately rushed to the emergency room, only to find that he never arrived. Daniel's mom remembers that he was 4 when he told her that he was a boy. It was another decade he came out as transgender. She added that Daniel thought of himself as bashful, but according to her, that wasn't the case. Sabrina said that Daniel, he never knew a stranger, even as a kid. He had so much life to give us, and to all of his friends and to himself. He always said, I'm shy, but he wasn't. He wrote poetry. He loved to dress up. He got into drama in high school. He was an entertainer. That was what he loved. One of the last images he posted publicly was a picture of him shirtless with a towel wrapped around his waist. He is touching his chest just below the visible top surgery scars and has his eyes closed in what looks like a calm, almost scared meditation. The caption reads, body and soul, almost 2 months post-op. No, I'm never posting a picture with a shirt on ever again. I didn't know Daniel, but I know the feeling of finding a home in your body or in your identity. Gender affirming care saves lives, and it truly is what sets us free to be our true selves. Thank you.
board members